Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into the really surprising science of sound. We're going to explore everything from why your own voice sounds so weird on a recording to how your brain can actually create a sound that isn't even there. And then we'll get into how you can harness the most powerful sound of all, the one inside your own head. Let's get into it. So let's kick things off with a question I'm pretty sure we've all asked ourselves. You know, the feeling you record a voicemail, you play it back, and you just cringe and think, wait, is that really what I sound like? Well, the short answer is, yeah, it is. At least that's how everyone else hears you. So what's going on here? Here's the difference. To you, your voice sounds lower, it sounds fuller, more resonant. But to the rest of the world, and to that recording device, it's actually higher pitched, a little bit thinner, and maybe a bit clearer. The reason for this wild difference isn't just in your head, it's literally in your bones. And that brings us right to our first stop. We're about to solve this mystery of our two voices, and it all comes down to a hidden way we hear things. The secret has a name. It's called bone conduction. You see, you don't just hear through your ear canals. There's a whole second auditory pathway where sound vibrations travel directly through your skull to your inner ear. So here's the key. You are hearing your own voice through two channels at the exact same time. The first is air conduction. That's how you hear everything else in the world. But the second is bone conduction. The vibrations from your vocal cords travel through your jaw and skull, and because bone is great at transmitting lower frequencies, it adds all this bass and richness that only you can hear. A microphone? It only picks up the sound traveling through the air, and that's why your recorded voice sounds so strangely high-pitched and unfamiliar. And if you want a really incredible example of just how powerful this is, look no further than Beethoven. As he was losing his hearing, he found a workaround. He'd bite down on a metal rod that was touching his piano. The vibrations from the music would travel through the rod, through his jaw, and directly to his inner ear, allowing him to hear the music. He was essentially feeling the sound through his own skeleton. Just amazing.
Okay, so we know our bones can change how we perceive sound, but let's push this a little further. What if your brain could be tricked into hearing a sound that doesn't physically exist in the room at all? And that brings us to our next topic, the brain's phantom beat. We're moving away from the physics of vibration and jumping into the wild world of pure perception. This amazing auditory illusion is called a binaural beat. Okay, check this out. If you listen to a tone in your left ear at, say, 405 hertz, and a slightly different one in your right ear at 415 hertz, your brain does something kind of magical. It doesn't just hear two separate sounds. It tries to make sense of the difference and actually creates a third tone, a phantom beat at 10 hertz, which is the exact difference between the two. That 10 hertz beat isn't actually being played. It exists only inside your head. So, why is this so cool? Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Your brain's own electrical activity, your brain waves, can actually start to sync up with that phantom beat. This process is called entrainment. And it means you could, in theory, use these sounds to gently guide your brain toward a particular mental state.
So let's say you want to relax. You could listen to binaural beats that create a phantom frequency in the alpha wave range, somewhere between 8 and 12 hertz. Or maybe you want to get ready for sleep. Then you'd aim for the lower theta range. It's kind of like using sound as a tuning fork for your brain. Okay, so we've gone from hearing sounds to literally creating them in our minds. But what happens when our brain creates a sound that we don't want to hear? This leads us to the challenge of taming inner noise. A lot of people deal with tinnitus, that constant internal ringing or buzzing sound. And the really cruel irony of it is that it's most noticeable, most intrusive when you're in a quiet place, like when you're trying to fall asleep. So what can you do? Well, one of the best techniques is called sound masking, and this analogy explains it perfectly. Think of your tinnitus in a quiet setting like a single lit candle in a pitch black room. You can't ignore it, it's all you can see. But now imagine flipping on all the lights in the room. That same candle is still there, but it's barely noticeable. It just doesn't command your attention anymore. That's what adding a bit of background sound does for tinnitus. But here's the thing. The real magic isn't just covering up the sound. The long-term goal is something called habituation. By consistently using background sound, you're actually training your brain to reclassify that tinnitus signal as unimportant. Eventually, your brain just learns to filter it out on its own, the same way it learns to ignore the hum of your air conditioner. All right, we've covered how our brains perceive sound and even how they can create it. But now let's talk about the sound that we generate ourselves, not with our vocal cords, but with our thoughts. This brings us to the most constant and maybe the most influential sound of all, your inner voice. Yep, your self-talk. It's that narrator in your head that's running pretty much 24/7. It's the most constant soundtrack of your life. And the big question is, what is that narrator saying? Is it a cheerleader or is it your biggest critic?
You know, without us even noticing, that inner narrator can fall into some pretty common negative traps. There's personalizing, where you blame yourself for everything. There's magnifying, where you blow one negative thing way out of proportion. Then there's catastrophizing, where you always expect the worst-case scenario. And polarizing, where things are either perfect or a total disaster, with no middle ground. Just being able to spot these patterns is the first step to changing that internal soundtrack.
And this is how you actually do it. It's not about pretending bad things don't happen, it's about consciously reframing them. So instead of "I let my team down," you can shift to "Hey, we win and lose together." Instead of "I lost my job, I was terrible," you can reframe it as "You know what? This is a chance to figure out what I really want." You're literally becoming the composer of a more constructive inner soundtrack.
And this is not just some feel-good exercise. Changing that inner voice has real, measurable effects on your physical health. Research has linked positive self-talk to some pretty amazing things, like a longer life, a lower risk of heart disease, and just greater life satisfaction overall. This stuff is powerful. So, from the vibrations in our bones to the phantom beats in our brain, all the way to the narrative we tell ourselves, it's clear that sound shapes our reality in ways we rarely even think about. Your mind is always playing a soundtrack. The only real question is, what will you choose to listen to?